Here we go, Kinesiology 223, Chapter 8, presentation number 4, and we're talking about leadership disparity and sexual prejudice. So, I have a background in coaching, college athletics, and I have to tell you, I worked at the University of Arizona under, she's preeminent to be quite honest, a female director of strength and conditioning. This was like 30 something years ago. And believe me when I tell you, she was unbelievably qualified. Multi-time, like two-time Olympian, gold medalist, if I remember correctly. And she was national champion in shot and discus for the Pac-10, which became the Pac-12, which now became dissolved. But she was champion level thrower for a number of years, and she was unbelievable to work with. I learned so much from her. But what was so interesting is that I went into this environment and she was a director of strength and conditioning as a female in a work role that was very much male dominated. So she was definitely a trailblazer. And I can cite and reference other coaches I've worked with. One coach I coached with at Austin P. She ended up going down to UNLV, and now she's a basketball coach in the high schools down there at a private school. And she's won like several state championships. She is unbelievably talented as a coach in the sport of basketball. So, if I were to make some generalities here, though, I can also state that I've seen more males coaching than females. But I can tell you, maybe it's my own prism and how I'm looking at things. I can tell you that I've had experience to some unbelievably gifted and talented female coaches. And the book, I think, tries to rationalize this out, why there aren't as many female coaches as there should be in terms of expectations in society and different expectations regarding what a coach should look like and how they should act versus perhaps societal norms for females. And I believe that that's changing. I believe it's a case where women have more opportunities because we're seeing more women's sports being pushed to the front of our consciousness as a society, which I think is great. So the book, I think in this first paragraph, they try to attribute this disparity, and they try to attribute this, and this is what they talk about here in terms of micro level and macro level. But I think the first paragraph is trying to equate the disparity that can be attributed to the expectations and self-limiting behaviors of the female coach. And I'm kind of like, man, I don't know about that because, I, male coaches, they want to coach, and they have a desire to coach and a burning desire to coach. Female coaches, it's the same damn thing. They want to coach and they have a burning desire to coach. So to that end, I'm not sure you look at this and go, it's a typically dominated by male role, and women are pushing more into the industry. And I don't know about that self-limiting comment. I'm not sure I'm in agreement with that, but it's what the book lists. The disconnect you see is when you have a male role model working with female athletes. Now, what they saw was in the studies that they note here, like Wasand, I think, et al. Is one of them, down here in 2019. What they found was there really wasn't an acute response to that. There really wasn't a big difference in the moment between male coach and female coach. But what they found was if you have a female coach, she probably had a female coach in her history at some point. And I think that's really interesting in terms of having a same gender coach, to really be kind of like that guiding light and the inspiration to stay in coaching, especially for like younger female coaches who are moving into the industry. Now this, I think the book is attempting to present kind of a graphic to encapsulate the challenges. And I think it could have been done better, to be quite honest. The first thing I see are a bunch of different colored stairs here. And usually when I see different colors, like look at me, Roy G. Biv, I would use that as a grouping mechanism or a grouping tool. And, like less access to social capital will be a different group than perceived compliant or perceived as compliant, and institutional discrimination, which are two different things, right? Institutional discrimination, maybe institutional practices would be the same color. So I looked at this and I was like, well, this is like a bunch of scrambled eggs up here on the screen. And I would ask, for example, is like less access to social capital is that the foundation of the problem, right? Or is it societal expectations? I got to tell you, if I was going to look at those two in terms of like from deductive reasoning, I would probably say societal is the bigger, more foundational issue. And then it becomes a series of less and less and less and less influence issues leading up the staircase to the top. Nonetheless, there are a number of different challenges that confront women in sports, especially when they get into leadership roles. Now, the authors point out that some of the most severe acts of discrimination, it occurs on the basis of sexual orientation. And this gets back to our conversation regarding gender versus sex. And what they point out is, the members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, LGBTQ community are at a higher risk of discrimination just because of who they are. And so as a result, with this, what's called homonegativism, where you have lesbian athletes and lesbian coaches, or gay coaches and gay athletes, homosexual athletes, either way, whether they're male or female, they experience a discomfort because they're forced to adapt to a more traditional role than they are accustomed to. And to some degree, it takes away from their genuine selves. Now, from somebody who's been a coach, I don't want an athlete who isn't truly genuine to themselves and has to think about other stuff and process other stuff. I'd rather them be themselves and be in the moment than worry about somebody being judgmental because of who they go home and, kiss at night. At the end of the day, who cares? But as a coach, you have to be cognizant of that, and you may have to intervene in that process. And you wish you had the luxury just to be flippant and say who cares, but as a person who is creating and driving the cultural tone and tempo of your team, you gotta care. And just like we talked about in another presentation, you may have to intervene on behalf of another person if they are from the lesbian, gay, bi, or transgender or queer population. And it's just, you're going to have to probably do that at some point in your career. So I really urge you to kind of take note of the things that I'm constantly talking about in these presentations in terms of you command the culture, you create the environment, you may have to intervene on somebody else's behalf. You have to understand some people will feel marginalized, even if they're not actually being marginalized, they may feel that way. And so you have to be able to recognize that as a coach. All right, guys, moving on to the next one. Thanks.